Hello and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining us. Very much appreciated. And in today's video, I'm having to change the emphasis of the video from what I was expecting to do to what I'm going to be doing because of what's happened in the market in the last few days. I think it's very important to address all the issues and to look at the bigger picture and to be able to see whether we should be reassured or whether we should be panicking. So hopefully we won't be panicking. Certainly at the moment I'm not panicking. There are many levels on different charts which we need to be aware of in order for us to be able to give the best intelligent response should those levels be broken. So in today's video I'm going to be looking at the comparison between the junk bond market with the Dow Jones Industrial Index. I'll have a look at the dollar. I'll also be having a look at the 21 weekly exponential moving average, what that's telling us and where we need to be by tonight and what the critical level is to look out for, as well as a current analysis of the Bitcoin chart. We have an amazing Wisdom Bite section today, which is looking at the 5 things that hold us back and what we can do to ensure that we don't get held back by those 5 things. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my reaction, because when I came across this video about 3 years ago, I remember making a lot of notes because it had a fundamental and transforming effect on my thinking and my mindset, and I hope you'll find it just as valuable as I did 3 years ago. So if that sounds interesting, then without further ado, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen, and let's get cracking. And before we begin, as usual, the disclaimer that please remember I'm not a financial advisor, I don't have a crystal ball. Everything in the videos should be taken for educational purposes only, and I would urge everybody to do their wider research before making any investment decisions. Okay, with that out of the way, I'm going to be starting off with the HYG chart compared to the Dow Jones Industrial Average down here on the weekly chart. And the reason why I want to show you this chart is that I want to take you back to the crash of the 2008-2009 market here. Here's the definition for that. Basically, there are 2 types of bonds. One is the investment grade bonds, which are really the LQD. We're not going to have a look at that today. But the other one is the HYG, which is the riskier bonds, which are also termed as junk bonds. And the HYG market, the definition of this is that bonds that pay higher interest rates because they have lower credit ratings than investment grade bonds. And high yield bonds are more likely to default, so they must pay a higher yield than investment grade bonds to compensate investors. So in a roundabout way, what they're really saying is that they carry a lot of risk. And so if you were having bonds that carry a lot of risk, you would be a lot more sensitive to what's going on around you, and you would be more willing to pull the trigger and take that risk off the table than people who've got safer bonds. So that's where we get the HYG, and why the HYG is a leading indicator for the Dow Jones Industrial Market. And we can see that clearly at play by looking at this 2008-2009 crash that we had. If you look at these 3 candles here, this one really started it all off in the week beginning 15th of September. But if you look at the corresponding week at the Dow Jones Index, we were still getting a flat line, although the market was declining, it was more flatter than the fall that we had initially with the junk bond market. But once we got down to the 3rd candle on the junk bond market, that's what really triggered the Dow Jones off here. So it's very important that we keep an eye on the HYG chart, because once this starts falling, this will lead to this happening in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. If we have a closer look at the current HYG chart, I marked these in recent weeks. I marked these 2 levels here. I think we were around about at this point at that time. And I said that we should be aware of these 2 levels here. The first one, where I would start to get concerned, would be around about the 85.5 mark here. And we're currently at 86. So we've just got back up above those levels. As you can see, with this candle, we fell below it, but it was bought up very, very quickly by the green candle that's followed it. So we've got a good impressive bounce back above those levels. So you can see that it's a critical level. However, I want you to be aware of the one that's below it, this line here, this green rays line down here. And the reason for that is when we zoom out, you'll see why that's very important. If we draw that level here, you can see quite clearly why this level where I've drawn with the green rays is important, because historically we found support at these lines here. And once we broke the support, that's what happened. And this is what is likely to happen, and that would trigger off a very high acceleration of the Dow Jones Industrial Average to fall. So this level is very critical. And currently that level I've placed at around about the 83 to 83.5 mark. So the current chart would suggest that while we're just trying to challenge the first level that we've got down here, we're still some way off from accelerating and triggering off a big fall on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So let's wait and see, but certainly these are the levels to look out for here, between 83 and 83.5. And if we have a look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average chart, dating back to the 1920s, we can see that there is this channel that we've been in for the last 100 years or so. And I've shown you this chart in recent weeks that we are actually at the top of the trend line here, and that it would seem from the chart that the fall in the Dow Jones Industrial Average is actually imminent. However, if we have a closer look at this chart here, we'll see that exactly what happened around here. We spent many months in the sideways movement before we had a fall, and similarly here. So this is where we're currently at. We're just above the trend line. We've gone above it and coming back and finding a little bit of support there. The level to look out for is at the bottom of this candle, which coincides with the trend line, and that level is at about 33,000. And as we can see, we're quite a way away from it at the moment. So imminently, there's nothing much to worry about, but it's something that we should keep our eyes on and be aware of in case it comes back down to these levels here, which would bring Bitcoin further down. And if we have a look at the RSI, currently you can see that it's overbought. So while the RSI can go sideways and up above the 70 level here, and while we can continue above the 70 and around it for a while, we must keep our eye on this, because it would suggest that sometime in the near future, maybe in a few weeks, maybe in a few months, we are due for a correction. And if we have a look on the weekly chart, something very interesting is developing. You may have noticed that there is the formation of a head and shoulder possibly forming here. So we've got the left shoulder, the head, and possibly in the next few weeks, possibly next few months, a right shoulder forming here. And since head and shoulders tend to be on the whole quite symmetrical, if you take a measure of the left shoulder, that would give us an indication of how long the right shoulder can take to develop. So if we take it from here to the middle at this point, that's 16 bars, that's about 4 months. So maybe the head and shoulders pattern is giving us an indication that in the next 4 months or so, we could well have a break of this head and shoulders pattern, which would bring it down to below the green rays critical level I've drawn up here for you. So let's wait and see, but certainly something to keep your eye on. So for me, at least, there isn't a decision to make until we have a break of this neckline at 33,000. Okay, I want to show you the dollar chart on the weekly time frame, and what you can see quite clearly here is that we've come to this red resistance point here, and we've got these 3 wicks protruding up, which means that there is a rejection of higher prices here. This candle with the long wick at the top is regarded as a gravestone doji and is usually a reversal pattern at the top of a trend, which we've got here. If you look at the RSI, you can see quite clearly that we are overbought on the RSI, which is well above the 70 mark at 76.98. So this critical red zone that I've drawn here, plus we've got this doji candle here, which is a reversal candle, and we've got the RSI, which is overbought, and finally one more indicator which is saying that we're overheated in the dollar chart. You can see quite clearly by the TD sequential here. So we've got a green 9 on the TD sequential, which is usually found at the top of a rally. Yes, of course it can go higher, but with the confluence of the resistance point, i.e. this red zone here, plus the candle, plus the RSI, and this red zone actually historically is a very strong resistance and support. If we move to the left, we can see clearly that this resistance point acted as support here, and here, and here, resistance at this point, resistance and support, etc. So this is a very strong resistance and support, and we've come to this point as resistance here. So for those reasons, I'm now expecting in the next few weeks for the dollar to fall, which is obviously the inverse of what happens to the rest of the markets. So I would be expecting the Dow Jones and the world stock markets, including the Bitcoin crypto market, to be going in the opposite direction. So once again, we haven't got anything imminently in danger or to worry about. But certainly if the dollar starts to move higher and break this resistance point, then this would have an inverse reaction on the world stock markets. So keep your eye on this. Very important developments on the dollar chart. Next on the list is the 21 weekly exponential moving average. This is one of the most critical indicators that we have. So if you look currently, we got this long candle with Bitcoin, which went all the way down to the $42,000 mark. But as you can see with the long wick, it's been bought up very, very quickly. So it's a very impressive bullish reaction to a big fall in the market. But the critical level is this yellow line here, the 21 weekly exponential moving average. And currently that's at around about 52,400. So if we can get above this by the close of play today in UK time, 12 o'clock, so that would be a bullish sign for the market to continue on its way up, bouncing from these levels here. Should this close below the 21 weekly exponential moving average, so that would be a dangerous development as we've seen historically. I remember when I did a video and we broke through this at this point here, and I remember saying at the time that unless we get back above this line very quickly within the next few weeks, then there is a danger we spend many months down here, which is exactly unfortunately what happened. However, once we got back up above it, that's when we began the current rallies that we've just had. But now we're in danger of losing that momentum here. So I think we've got to look out for in the next few weeks, just like over here, in the next few weeks, if we can just get back and haul ourselves above these levels, around the 52.5 and above, then we should be good to go back to the upside. And it is possible because here, just a few weeks back, we actually fell below the 21 weekly at this point, but very quickly within the following week, we got back up, which helped us to continue with the upside momentum. So only time will tell, but certainly these are the key levels to look out for in the next few weeks, around the $52,500 mark. So the worst case scenario would be that if we don't close above this, then we have many weeks and months of sideways action below the 21 weekly exponential moving average, which would obviously elongate the current 4-year cycle. So we could have, as many of you have pointed out in the comment sections, we could have an elongated cycle compared to the first 2 cycles. So only time will tell, but certainly these are the levels to look out for. Okay, moving on to one of my favorite indicators, and that's the hash ribbons, to see whether we should panic or not. As we saw, the last time we hit the blue buy dot signal here was back in August this year. And I'll have a quick look at this in a minute. But the main thing to remember with these blue buy dot signals, all the way back to the 2010 start of the Bitcoin history, what we've got here is that once we hit the blue dot, then we very rarely ever come below that level ever again, as you can see from here. So all through our history, these blue dots have represented a price from which the Bitcoin price doesn't come back to in the near future. So if we have a look at the current blue buy signal that we got over here. So this was the last blue dot that we got, which was the buy trigger on this candle here. The close of this candle at around the $43,000 mark. We closed below it slightly on this candle here. However, that was a sign for a lot of buying up, so that the next candle, it pushed it right back up again. So you know that this level is a very strong level from which the buyers will come in. And as you can see, the candle protruded this currently the last couple of days. But again, it was very quickly and very impressively bought up, showing signs of bullishness in the market still. So certainly I'm not expecting the market to actually go below the $43,000 mark. Obviously anything can be possible, but as we've seen with the history of this indicator, the hash ribbons, in the last 11 years, once we hit a blue buy signal here, it happens to be a level at which the Bitcoin price doesn't, on the whole, come back to retest again. But only time will tell. But certainly this gives me a lot of reassurance and a lot of hope that this is now bottomed out. And finally, just having a current look on the Bitcoin chart on the daily time frame, you'll recall that I gave you these levels here. The first level was the $59,000 mark, because as you can see, there's a lot of resistance at that point. So should we have got above that level, then we were good to go and retest this trend line here as per its history recently. However, it's not managed to do that, and we've had a fall here. So the next level was this support line here at $53,000 mark. Once we broke that, this was unprecedented. We weren't expecting that. But certainly it's interesting that we've come and found support at this point here. Why would that be the case at the $42,000 mark? Well, if you've been watching my recent videos in the recent weeks and months, you'll know that this is a very critical level. When we move left, we can see these are the levels we've been marking up previously. As we saw when we came up with a very strong rally up here, that we got rejected at this point strongly. So you would know that this would be a key level. And when we went up on this rally and came back down, we found support at this level here. So these 2 points became extremely important and relevant to our chart in the future. And if we draw these 2 points across, you can see quite clearly that this is where we found very strong support. I would hope, and with a high degree of probability, that this is a bottoming out. And if we look at the 50 simple moving average, that's this white line here, the 50 simple moving average on the weekly chart. We can see that we found support above this line now. So this is a bullish sign that we may well have bottomed out here. So only time will tell, but certainly it's giving a very good indication. And as long as we can stay above this, then we're increasing the probability for the price action to remain above these levels. The current levels are at about 49,300 here. So if we can stay above this for at least a few days, maybe a week or so, then that would be a good sign that we'd be moving more towards the upside. So let's wait and see what happens. But certainly if we break these levels here, we have a decision to make whether we want to stay in this market. And my red line in the sand was always 40,000, as I've mentioned in the last few weeks. But currently, I don't think there's anything to be overly concerned about. Certainly, we need to be aware of these levels and these prices and what's happening in the charts. But certainly, we shouldn't be panicking at any moment yet. All we can say is that this fall that we've just had down to the $42,000 mark was unprecedented and not expected in the least. Because if you look at the wider perspective here, we've had these bullish channels which have broken to the upside, forming another bullish channel and back to the upside. And once again, it was forming another bullish channel here. So the expectation was that we would go towards the $60,000 mark here before moving further. But as we've seen with Bitcoin's history, it has a habit of surprising and shocking us and going to the opposite side to what we're thinking. The other thing to mention is that on this daily chart, the RSI seems oversold here. So it may well be that we're bottoming out with the momentum to the upside to come. Let's wait and see what happens. No one has a crystal ball. All we can do is read the charts and put our perspective on it. So we'll see how things develop in the next few days and weeks. But please keep in mind all the levels that I've shown you today, and we'll revisit these in the following videos in the next few weeks. But now it's time for our wisdom bite of this week, and it's an incredible subject matter which looks at the 5 things that hold us back in our life. And I really wanted to share this with you because I hope you'll get as much value from the video as I did when I first watched it about 3 years ago.
Don't allow yourself to be controlled by these 5 things. Many people spend their life at the mercy of circumstances, living at the mercy of what happens to them, living at the mercy of other people, not living in the present because they are stuck in the prison of their past. If you want to live a great life, don't allow yourself to be controlled by any of these things. Number 1, your past. Number 2, other people's opinions and judgments. Number 3, limited beliefs you project on yourself. Number 4, relationships. And number 5, money. Number 1, don't allow your past to control your present or your future life. Whatever happened, you must let it go. Leave the pain of your past behind so it cannot ruin your future. Leave the darkness of your past behind so it cannot block the light of your bright future. Your past is gone. Whatever happened, whether unjust, cruel, harsh, whatever the case, reliving the events will never do you any good. If someone did you wrong, the only way you can win is if you let go and move on. If you live in hate, they win. If you live in the victim story, they win. If you want to win, you must focus on building your future and start right now. Release that weight from your back so you can be free. Don't allow events from the past which are now gone to ruin this moment, which is perfect. This moment, which is now to enjoy, which is ready for you to live fully. Number 2, don't allow other people's opinions and judgments to control the direction of your life. The need to fit in and feel wanted can cause you to travel down paths you don't want to travel. People pleasing is a curse that should be avoided at all costs. Before you do anything, ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to do it, or because of my fear of judgment from others if I don't? You were born unique for a reason. You were born to stand out, to be appreciated and loved for who you are. Don't dim your light so you fit into the dull background of other people's lives. Shine bright as you are. Those who really care for you will see that light and shine with you. Number 3, don't allow your life to be controlled by your own limited beliefs. Now, a warning with this one. These beliefs may be conscious, but more than likely, they're unconscious. They may be unconscious limitations that have been conditioned in you from a young age and throughout your entire life by listening to those around you who never reach for their own dream. Notice your own limited beliefs and tell them to shut up. There is nothing you cannot do, nothing you cannot have, and no one you cannot become if you believe in yourself. If you believe anything is possible, guess what? Anything is possible. When you change your belief from limited to unlimited, your potential is unlimited. Imagine what you could achieve if you lived your life as though anything is possible, as though miracles are a standard requirement of every day. As the saying goes, when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. When you have nothing inside holding you back, there is nothing outside that can hold you back either. Your entire life will change the very instant you decide to change your mindset. The instant you decide to see everything as a gift. When you decide to see every circumstance and challenge as a blessing rather than a curse, the very instant you become conscious to the fact that everything in it is as it should be, and know that fighting what is insane. Number 4, relationships. A touchy subject. But if you are always needing another to be happy, to feel complete, then you are always one moment away from a breakdown if that person leaves you, or unhappiness if the relationship you are in is not going well. I'm not suggesting to avoid relationships. There is no force on earth that is greater than love and connection. I am talking about those who can't live if they aren't in a relationship. Those who will be with just about anyone, including all the wrong ones, just to avoid spending a moment being single. What I am saying is to develop enough mental strength that you get to the point where you don't need others to make you happy. You are just as happy being alone as you are in a relationship. And number 5, this is what controls the majority of humans on the planet. And you guess what it is? Money. This does not mean you shouldn't want abundance. It doesn't mean money is evil. You know as well as I do what great things you can do and how many people you can help with money. What this means is, do not allow your decisions to be controlled by money. If you are choosing something only on the factor of how much money is involved, you've just made the wrong decision. What you will find is that when you follow your heart and you lead with your intention to serve others, to give your best to others every single time, when you follow your intuition and truly give your soul, then the money will come. And it will come in far greater amounts than if you simply chase money for the sake of chasing money. So challenge yourself to live the life you want to live, free from being controlled by anything. Find your freedom. Live fully.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I just wanted to give a reaction to that video because it's very important to share some of my perspectives on what I learned from there, so that maybe you may find some of that valuable as well. And the reason why we do these Wisdom Bites section is simply because if you listen to quotes of famous people like Leo Tolstoy, he says in one of his quotes that everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. This is the reason why we do the Wisdom Bites, simply to work on ourselves, because the more we work on ourselves, the more we change for the better. And if you look at some of the other quotes down here, like from Wayne Dyer, which I like a lot, if you change the way you look at things, then the things you look at change. And this is what I'm hoping, that by watching that video, you'll look at those 5 things in a completely different way. Then those 5 things will look completely different to you once you've been able to reflect on it. So to give you my reaction to these points that the video has made, that the past, one of the best ways I've found to leave the past behind is actually that very powerful word, which I've done a separate Wisdom Bite many, many months ago, you may recall it, on forgiveness. People don't realize the importance of forgiveness. And I mentioned in that video that there are 4 people you must forgive if you want to be able to clear your pathway to success and remove the roadblocks ahead of you. The first people you must always forgive are your parents. The second group of people are all the people who have come on your life journey, who may have caused you problems and difficulties. Once you've forgiven them, that allows you to move on. Otherwise, they pull you back time and time again and prevent you from having a very great future ahead. The third people to forgive would be your husband, your wife, your partner, because whilst we're not perfect, they are your committed helpers on your journey. And it's better to take them with you on that journey rather than against you. And the final person to forgive is obviously yourself. Because today, you are not the same person as you were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So if there's anything that you're beating yourself up with over things that you may have done in the past, you have to just respect yourself and say, well, I'm not the person today that would do those kinds of things which I've done in the past. So you need to move on from there by forgiving yourself. The second point made in the video is about other people's opinions and judgments. I hope you'll be able to get some value in what I'm about to say. Please remember, if you want to be successful, then we just have to realize that on any level or measure of success, 95% of people in the world are not successful. Example, if we take some of the areas of life that affect us on a daily basis, like our career, our attitude, our social environment, i.e. the people we mix around with on a regular basis, our health and fitness, our relationships, etc., etc. If you look at all of those levels, you'll realize very quickly, and I've mentioned that in many of my previous Wisdom Bites, that on any of those measures, 95% of people are not successful. For instance, if you take the money side of things, then in any country, if you Google it, you'll realize that only between 3 and 5% of people are millionaires in any one country. And that's certainly true of the UK where I live here. So the question we have to ask ourselves is this: why would I need to consider the opinions of 95% of people? surely their opinions and judgments can't be that important if it hasn't led them to be successful. So if you want to be successful, you should focus and concentrate on the 5% of people who are successful and take on board their opinions, which are going to be more in line with your dreams and visions and your objectives of life in terms of becoming successful. The third point made was that of limiting beliefs, and I want to share you my thoughts on this because in my own experience, I used to have a limiting belief in terms of technology, because I went to university and graduated with an economics degree at a time when computers were just coming in, but they came in just after I'd left university. And I had a limiting belief that I was a bit frightened to deal with technology. And the way I overcame this was, first of all, to identify what exactly it was. And it was basically a fear of the unknown. But once I recognized that this is a limiting belief and that it's just a belief and not a fact, then I realized the damage that this belief was doing to me because I wasn't able to move forward. What I decided to do was to work against that belief by adopting a new mindset, by continually saying to myself that if I can go and get a degree in a complex subject like economics, there is no reason why I cannot overcome the barriers of understanding technology. And just by doing that was the door that opened my YouTube channel here. 10 years ago, I could not possibly conceive of me doing this. And yet, by facing your fears and smashing through your limiting beliefs, you can achieve whatever it is you want to achieve in life. The fourth point made was about relationships. And this is very, very interesting because I've noticed in my journey of life that I saw many relationships which became very toxic and actually ruined the careers of many of those people. And what I learned from my experiences of watching these toxic relationships disintegrate and cause a lot of harm to the people is this, that to avoid the toxicity is to actually become self-sufficient in your own life, that there is no one who can fill any void in your life, so that you can then focus on enjoying the other person's company and their companionship for the way they are, rather than needing them to fill your gaps in your life. And one of the ways to be self-sufficient is that once you decide to be successful and engage with the laws of attraction to attract positive situations and circumstances into your life, then what you do is you actually bring on board to yourself many things that become valuable to other people. So you become a very valuable person in terms of adding value to other people's lives around you. And the one thing I find with this is that other people will not find it easy to let you go because you provide a huge amount of value to their life. Of course, relationships are very complex and there are many layers to them, but certainly that's what I've observed on my journey of life. Finally, on the last subject matter of money, what I've found is that people who normally say that they don't really want to chase money or are not bothered with it, I find they are the ones who spend most of their day trying to make ends meet just to cover their costs. So instead of embracing the idea that we need money because money opens doors which otherwise would remain closed, these people shy away from money, and as a result of that, they don't attract the money or the opportunities to make money into their life. Certainly we should have a healthy view of money and know that it will open up doors which otherwise would remain closed if we didn't have money. So that's my reaction on these 5 things. I hope you found value in these things. And if you did, then please do remember to like and subscribe and to turn on the notification bell. And if you've got any comments, questions or suggestions, then please leave them in the comments below. Please let me know in the comments which of the 5 you found of most value. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.